DisAbility Ministries, which serves a population of adults with developmental disabilities throughout Snohomish County. So let's welcome Kinder Smoots.
Thank you so much. This is such a fun club. Every time I come visit, you guys just have such a great time. But this over here, when I sidestep, is going to be an adventure. This I've done, all my staff meetings on Zoom, and I've done presentations and stuff like that from my office or home from Zoom. But the whole screen sharing and PowerPoint will be interesting. There we go. Oh, nice. Oh, you do have a clicker. Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody at home and at work. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Okay. For those of you who actually don't know me or haven't heard me come share, I think it's been probably maybe 6 or 7 years that since I've come and thank you. Stand still. Okay. Since I've come to share at the Arlington Club. So some of you may know a little bit already about my history. But for those of you who are new, I'm just going to give you just a little bit of a background as to why I do, what it is. So back way back, my first husband and I were given a gift of this little girl named Kayla. And Kayla was born with a really rare condition called arthrogryposis. Arthrogryposis, fortunately, does not affect the brain, but it simply affects all of the joints throughout the body. So pretty much Kayla was paralyzed from the neck down, but she was smart as a whip, mainstreamed in regular school classes, but it really took up a ton of my time. So I resigned my position at the law firm I was working for in Redmond and then became a stay-at-home mom. I stayed at home with Kayla because there were so many, regular activities she would do in the community, being a part of the Seattle Children's Chorus, being in school, but there were also a ton of physical therapy appointments and lots and lots of surgeries just to help her be able to do simple things like we could put jeans on her and whatnot. So Kayla would have many major surgeries. Along with arthrogryposis comes things like osteoporosis and twisting of the neck and all sorts of things. So we spent a ton of our time at Children's Hospital. In 2003, Kayla needed major surgery that went down her spine on exterior and interior. And so this surgery would help straighten out her back, fusing a rod in her spine. And here she is for that surgery. And she made it 20 days after that. And then Kayla passed away at the age of 11. Now, staying at home and being a stay-at-home mom for those 11 years really became my life, right? That's all I knew was how to be a community advocate, how to work with her in the school district. Okay. How to, go to school with her and be an advocate, how to, handle IEPs and how to navigate the social service system, getting her health insurance and benefits and things like that. That's my screen intentionally. Okay. Who put this guy Paul in charge? That's my blank screen. Just while I fill in the transition between my major emotional loss, Paul, and this new thing that I'm doing. So kudos to you. Where's the happy dollar basket? You'd be fined right here. No, okay. So that is the world that I knew, really being a community advocate and understanding this population and how people treat people differently who have some sort of special need. Well, it was about a month. I stayed in bed. My other 2 kids went to school, and they really didn't need me like Kayla did. And I became very, very depressed. And so a friend called me up and challenged me and said, what you need to do is just 3 things today. Get out of bed, take a shower, and go somewhere. You don't have to have a purpose, but just try to do these 3 things. That's how devastated I was. So I did that, and my car kind of went on autopilot to a church where I had been going. And the secretary there was very kind, but just said, how are you? And I just lost it. Turned around and went back home. And I had said to her, I'm just not sure I'm going to survive this. Went back home, and that very same day, this gentleman named Hank Wapstra, who's a retired pastor, had called the church office to say, I'm planning this little potluck for 60 people at Christmas time. This was at the end of October at the time. And he just said, I need to retire. I can't do this potluck. It was for Eagle Wings. And she said, hey, there's this lady that just came in a few hours ago, and I'd like you to give her a call. Maybe she would volunteer and help you out. So here I am back at home. This guy I don't know named Hank calls me up and says, I just got your name and number, and I'd like you to come volunteer. And, would you be willing to meet me and talk about this? And so I did. And Hank told me a little bit about Eagle Wings, but he was very wise in just saying a little bit about the organization, so I wouldn't be overwhelmed. And then he told me the greatest unmet need for this population of adults who have a developmental disability is caring and ongoing relationships, because most of them live in adult family homes throughout Snohomish County. I mean, this population from the age of 18 to 60, so it's not part of the long-term aging population, but that bracket who require a full-time caregiver is 8.5% of Snohomish County's population. So they're everywhere, right? All these little adult family homes tucked in. And it's really been hard for them during COVID because, of course, they are classified under long-term care, just like assisted living places. But it really fits in with Rotary, because coming to volunteer with Eagle Wings is really learning how to serve above yourself. So what I did was, Hank told me, we're going to do this Christmas potluck. We'll invite some people to come and have them bring dinner and just kind of do a celebration. And me being the person that I am, I just said, hey, well, what about if we got a Santa Claus there? And what about if I made really nice invitations and then went around to some of these adult family homes and knocked on their door, told them about the dinner, told them it's free, and see if they would come. And all they had to do was RSVP for this dinner. Well, within a week, we had dinner for 240 adults with special needs. So it was so much more than the potluck for 60 people that we had been planning. I decided to do away with the potluck and ask some friends of mine who do a lot of cooking in town if they would just cook a meal for everybody. So we quickly raised money and we did this dinner, and being at that dinner completely changed my life. So I'm standing in the back of the room, and there's these two big round tables that have people with profound needs, right? They're nonverbal, they're in wheelchairs. And I had asked the pastor there to do like a sing-along. So the first song was Joy to the World. And it was like these people who are at these two tables just came to life. Like, how people who are nonverbal kind of make groaning noises as they can. And it was like they came to life. I mean, their arms started going up in the air, and they weren't interested in eating anymore. And they just started making these groaning noises. And I knew that they were singing Joy to the World however that they could. I mean, they know the songs. These are probably the songs their moms sang to them, right, when they were little. So I just knew I had to be a part of this organization. So after the dinner, I went back to Hank and I said, Hank, I want to do this again. Like, how can I help? How can I be of help here? And he said, we're going to do the same dinner, but we're going to do it with a lot more preparation, because we had about a month and a half to do this dinner. And I just said, I think it would be beneficial if we didn't wait that long. So I went around to different friends. I went to my daughter's former physical therapist and said, hey, would you coordinate a dinner? And the dinners quickly grew. So we started doing things like a pirate bash in Mill Creek. We started doing things like a day camp out at Cedar Springs, and really getting people plugged into each other, where they would make friends that would last a long time, right? And it's really a two-way street, because you have a volunteer who comes and you learn a lot of bigger things like patience, right? These people can't eat as quickly as we can, but they love to laugh and have a good time. And then you learn that they become our teachers, right, of things that are of greater value. This is Megan right here. I'll tell you a little bit more about her at the end, but I had an interview with her last Friday, and she said, I asked her if she had a motto, and she said, my motto is to inspire love. She just has the best attitude about everything. So one of the events that we did in 2004, we started the Hawaiian luau, which was great. We had people who could sort of assimilate a luau and a pig roast. We do a Thanksgiving dinner. We help people build relationships. You can see some Arlington families in there as well. People, coming together out of love and compassion. We train all of our volunteers. This is an event we do at the Forest Park Pool. This is all, of course, pre-COVID, but we built our events until through 2019, we were doing 44 of these dinners annually, and each one has between 200 and 300 people we serve, right? So we train all these volunteers and equip them, and then they do these events for us. We helped build a special friends camp out at Warm Beach that runs 5 weeks during the summer. And I got to tell you the coolest thing about this, we make it an environment of yeses, because you have somebody who's like, down at the bottom on the ground in a wheelchair saying, I want to get up there and do that zip line, right? Like, how are we going to make this happen? We asked the volunteers to come down out of the trees. We put the young lady into her holster, right? And clipped her all into the harness. The volunteers hoisted her into the trees. Now, this young lady has no mobility, but they help move her throughout the trees just by clipping her in from one carabiner to the next. And then they get her to the very end where it's the zip line that goes across the entire field, right? And she has no bodily ability to gain momentum to step off the ledge and zip line, right? So the volunteers are looking at me like, what do we do? And I'm actually looking around for my insurance adjuster to make sure like this is all okay. And I said, just push her. So they did 1, 2, 3, they swung her back and they shoved her down that line. And you could just hear her screaming with joy, being able to get outside, get out of her chair and feel like a typically developing human being. Well, as you know, COVID hit and put an end to all of these programs, the celebrations programs. So we took our life groups that were meeting in person, we took our Bible studies, and all those moved onto Zoom. Now it's incredibly unique situation that you have all these individuals who are already isolated. They're in their adult family homes, nobody going in or going out. The average paycheck for a person with a developmental disability from the state is $780 a month. So that has to help pay for their rent, their caregiver, their food, and all of that. So affording technology is just not always an option. So many of the people we serve, their parents or their loved ones, quickly got them some technology. But then there are quite a few people in our programs who don't actually have the developmental ability to operate a computer, right? So the numbers in our programs drastically reduced, and we knew that we were going to have to do some old-fashioned programs. So we do crafts. Those who are able to do Zoom, we do Zoom. They did Mother's Day crafts just before Mother's Day. And this is our Bible study group that meets. We've done a couple block parties. We've done a couple birthday parties we did one for an individual who lives in Lake Stevens. He has both Down syndrome and autism, and he just recently survived cancer. And his parents sat him out in a chair in his front yard for this parade. And this young man, sometimes when you have autism, you have like a thing like that you collect or a thing that you obsess over. And for him, it's fobs. So he has collected, maybe 40 or 50 fobs. They call him the Fob King over the years. But I knew he was into cars. And so I contacted 3 of the local Mopar car clubs and got everybody to join in this parade. And it went for about 3 miles long in front of his house. We did ask Lake Stevens Police did an escort for us because we didn't want to upset the neighborhood too much. but it was really powerful. And then there were some of the drivers that stopped and rolled down their window and like gave him a fob, which was just amazing. But having people, you know, kind of socially distance outside. We did a talent show. The gentleman that I was telling you about earlier that just had a birthday and we did the parade for, this is a picture of his sister in the far right, I believe. And there are the only two biological children of these parents, and she also just beat cancer as well. So this Saturday is her 18th birthday, and we will be at Lake Stevens High School doing a flash mob dance with her with a whole bunch of volunteers just to help her celebrate her birthday. So our programs have been reduced, and we've been being more intentional and relational to specific individuals who really are on the margins. This is a few pictures of Austin's birthday party where the car club just came through and just spoiled him. One of the programs we started was an old-fashioned pen pal program where people we serve can be matched up with people who write letters back and forth. We found volunteers to handwrite 300 Valentine's Day cards, and then we did front porch deliveries of all those cards with chocolates, just reaching out to people saying, you know, we value you, we remember you. And then, well, this is me actually in the rabbit suit, going around Arlington, egging houses. And what we did was we just had volunteers fill a whole bunch of plastic eggs. And then we went and quote, hid them right in plain sight on their front porches. And it was so cool to see people, you know, one specific Arlington family, the young man saw me out his window, and all that was showing, of course, is my eyes. And then I had it was a hot sunny day like this. I had this heavy rabbit costume on, and you could hear him screaming out the window, "Kinder is here, Kinder, it's Kinder." And he's rocking like this back and forth, so excited. And his mom let him come out with his mask on, and it was great to, you know, kind of fist bump him. But those are the kinds of things that we're doing. Most recently, we want to experiment in getting our celebrations program going again. And so we did a drive-through celebration. This was the Hawaiian Luau. And they had little awnings set up throughout their church parking lot, and we had cars drive through. And then at each little awning, they could stop and get like a little gift, like they got a little Hawaiian mask, they got sunglasses, and then water bottles and all kinds of treats. And then at the very end, we gave them a dinner to go. And it was not only powerful, it was the first time that a lot of the people we serve had kind of been to see, you know, volunteer faces and out in the community. But it was really cool for our volunteers to get together because, as you know, some volunteers are a little timid about going back and being around this population because they are so vulnerable. So as we're testing out the waters for this celebration, this was just 2 weeks ago, we sent out invitations just to see like how many people would come to this dinner, how many people felt the need to be out knowing they'd have to stay in their vehicle to get a dinner to go. And within 24 hours, we had 136 reservations, but each one of those reservations represents an adult family home of like 6 or 7 people we serve. So a lot of people, we had to limit it at 150, but it was a pretty powerful event. These are some of the giveaways and the things that they did, lots of tears. So our next testing the water is going to be our Fun in the Sun event in Marysville on Saturday, June 5th. It's going to be like our kickoff for summer. And same thing, we're going to put awnings up, but this time when they get dinner at the end, there's a grassy area. It'll be at Generations Community Church, kind of close to the top of Highway 9 and 4th in Marysville by the Walmart there. They have a grassy area in the back. So we're going to let people, if they want, take their dinners out into that area, and they can bring chairs or a picnic blanket, socially distance themselves, and kind of see how that goes. There's a lot of people who are nervous bringing out their loved ones who you know they're just so thankful that they've survived this season. So anyway, just, is there any questions that anybody has? Yes. Yes, I'll repeat the question. So he's asking what the average number of people is in an adult family home and kind of how that operates. Yes. So adult family homes are not the great for the people we serve, are not the greatest money-making business. It's really because each person gets such a small check, like I told you earlier, it averages between 6 or 7 people in an adult family home. And they also then have to staff it 24 hours a day. So many times the person who owns the home or owns the business will also live there, which means then that they can only have, 4 or 5 people in the home. And then sometimes if they're well-funded or if they save, some homes, it's really important for them to get out into the community. So they'll have their own vehicle and maybe pay for their own transportation. But the majority of the people we serve use DART to transport, to get around. So it's a lot to coordinate, and it's a ton of work for caregivers. And caregivers on average, make about $16 an hour to care for our clients. So yeah, does that answer your question? Okay, thank you, Jean.
So how do you get funded to put on all these events, and what can we do?
Yes, so that's a great question. Thank you. So he's asking, for those of you who didn't hear, how do we get funded and how do we put on these events? Our funding base is about 60% individual support. And then we have about 10% that is from grant writing. So this last year of COVID, I've spent a lot of time working on those relationships for grants and doing a lot of grant writing. But then we also get support from local churches, like a church would put us in their mission budget. And then when we do a fundraiser, so we'll have our fundraiser the weekend after Labor Day weekend, Sunday afternoon at Bleachers. And that event is just a dinner, and we raise the money ahead of time, and the dinner is a celebration of that. And we also get business sponsors for that. So as I mentioned earlier, just to tail on to that amazing question, I'll pay you later for that. I showed you a slide of a young lady in our programs who has Down syndrome, but she is really amazing. She has been able to navigate Zoom completely independently. She's a great communicator. And I think that the right thing to do for Eagle Wings to be a model of building relationships in the community is to employ somebody who has special needs. And so that is our next upcoming project, is to offer somebody a job. And so we'll be interviewing for that position. But I think having somebody up front who also can help with volunteer training, your conversation is just different when you're talking about a specific population and you have that person sitting at the table with you, right? Your conversation is just going to be different. And so we really desire that at Eagle Wings, but we haven't risen up enough, and our infrastructure hasn't grown enough and been strong enough to carry on something like that. And so we're talking about having her and a helper. Total gross budget for that is $14,000 for the year. So it's very doable. And so my proposal to the Arlington Club is a $2,000 grant to help support that project. Yes, go ahead.
How are these people receiving COVID vaccinations?
How are they receiving it?
Right. How's that going? Are they receiving their vaccines?
Yes,
or what?
yes. So when they opened up COVID vaccinations back in March is when they started to be able to get some of the people we serve out. They all have their own individual physicians, and so they are able to go to, whether their care is done at a I'm trying to think of some of but it's like public health services, right? Yeah. then they go there and get their immunizations. I will say that our population is about a 60-40 split. 60% really want the vaccination, but then there's another 40% of people who, you know, they really feel like things like immunizations have caused things like autism, and they've already lived like a really difficult life, you know, on a daily basis. You know, some people believe that comes from vaccinations. So it's torn, and it'll be interesting to see what happens over this next year, because I've already had conversations like, for example, there's about 12 businesses in our area that provide supportive employment services. So you have a job coach who's assigned to go with somebody to work. The person wants to go back to work. The business is now open enough and gaining enough business that they can bring back the person with special needs to employment. But the family finds out that maybe the job coach hasn't been vaccinated, and the family doesn't want their person, I understand, doesn't want their loved one around somebody who hasn't had the vaccine. So it's going to be an interesting discovery on that. So